Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of Analogpod. I'm your host, Leonard Carillo, and together we're going to explore, probe, and celebrate the passions and very interesting journeys of artists and musicians from across the fruited plain. Today, I'm very excited to have with us a legend in contemporary Christian music, one of the pioneers and groundbreakers, guitarist and songwriter, Mr. John Wickham. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode of Analogpod. And we're here this morning here with Mr. John Wickham. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great and glad to be here with you.
John, where are you calling from?
I am in North County, San Diego, in a town called Escondido.
Escondido. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there. Well, for the audience, let me give you just a little bit of insight of who John Wickham is. John is basically what I call a pioneer. Okay, a pioneer in Christian contemporary music. Okay, he was one of the ones on the forefront, had a profound effect on my life, which we've had some conversations about, but had a profound effect on my life of being involved in Christian contemporary music. John has played with groups like The Way, Parable, which is one of my favorites, Bethlehem, the Maranatha Singers, Benny Hester, another big fan of Benny Hester, Eric Nelson, and the list goes on. I have a list here, John. I don't know if you have ever seen this discography of yours, but
No.
it goes through a few pages here of the stuff that you've done. So pretty impressive. So John, how are things going with the COVID? How's things been how's things been developing with your projects or your shows, your career, that type of thing? How's this had an effect on you?
Well, the COVID thing, obviously, I mean, getting shut down and all that was a shocker to all of us. I mean, to everybody. It was so weird. And as far as getting this album done that I've been working on for so long, it actually gave more time for that. So no problems there. But I've been involved with for many years, leading worship at, in fact, a week or two ago, across the 40-year mark of being an on-staff worship leader. My wife and I have led worship for decades. And so things shut down there at the church. It's a big church here in North County. And but we just eventually started meeting outside, and we're back inside now, and so it just took some adjustment, but we got through it. And everybody's playing, out and about, got shut down, so that was kind of interesting. But it did open more time to get the album done, which I did finally.
Well, I'm excited about that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So, but let's go way back. Let's turn the time machine on and the flux capacitor here.
Let's do it.
When did you first pick up? Well, when did you first started playing music, and was guitar the first instrument that you started playing?
Yes, it was. I was 10 years old when the Beatles appeared on Ed Sullivan, and it just rocked my world and hundreds of thousands of other preteens, I'm sure. Yeah. And that's when I picked up the guitar. My brother had been playing before me. He was older than me, and he'd been playing a couple years before me, and I wanted to play really bad, and I picked up the guitar along with a lot of my friends, and we kind of dove into it because so many social pressures at school. It was such an awkward time and hard time, and I just dove in. And in the 60s, as you know, there was guitar playing from everywhere. I mean, I remember the first time I heard Hendrix, his album. Oh my gosh. And the word, Paul Butterfield Blues Band. And of course, when Cream came along, I mean, there was so much. And all I did was focus on guitar solos. I I didn't even really know lyrics to any songs until after I got married, because my wife's a singer and I learned them from her. But so I was 10 years old, and it was guitar. So I remember my parents bought me finally, because my brother was a guitarist, and so I was like a little cute thing following along. And so they bought me, I think the guitar cost either 12 or 13 bucks. And the strings were probably 3/4 of an inch off the neck. And, but I gave it a shot and I pressed forward.
So who would you say is your influence? You had mentioned Jimi Hendrix, but who would you say was your main influence? You said you also saw the Beatles, which that's basically kind of the click on switch that went, I want to start playing music. In fact, that's my Hofner. That's right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a 60.
How fun.
Yeah. So, but who would you say is your biggest influence?
Well, honestly, I seriously just focused on, I just went for guitar solos. I mean, and I had friends, they were kind of like a second family to me. In fact, Alex McDougall, he played in our conversation before you pressed record here. You mentioned these other groups. He played with Larry Norman. He played with Daniel, and all that. You know who Al is.
I know, very well.
Yeah. He first invited me to church because he received the Lord at the Billy Graham Crusade in '69 that was in Orange County. But we listened to music all the time together. We loved Buffalo Springfield. We listened to tons of blues, and blues players, of course, B.B. King and Albert King and all of that. And I remember hearing this solo. I have no idea how I got the record, but it was a Deep Purple 45. And I don't remember what was on the A side, but was on the B side was Kentucky Woman that Neil Diamond wrote. And they did a redo of it, and the guitar solo on it blew my mind. I mean, it was so unusual and so good. And so little things in there I'd pick up. And so it was from a lot of places. But when Cream was a big deal, I mean, all their stuff was a big deal. And I saw them once live. And so it was all those different guitar players. I think more than anything with Hendrix, he's a great player. I mean, undoubtedly, that goes without saying, but his sound was just stunning. I mean, it was just stunning. I was in junior high school, and I remember some teacher, it was during a break, she had a speaker outside of her classroom just blasting in the halls, which kind of blows my mind that they let her do it, but they did. And it was playing the first album. And I turned the corner and I was just walking, and I heard this sound, and I was probably 30, 40, 50 feet from it. And I just was stunned. I just froze, and I was like, I don't know. I almost didn't want to get closer. I mean, it was really a weird moment. It was so profound in me. And, getting on in years, when you haven't heard something in a long time and you go back to it, sometimes what you thought was good was kind of like, wow, that's not so good anymore. And other times it's like, it's exactly how I remembered it. And that happened because some time ago, within the last, I forget when, years ago, I went back and I listened, and I thought to some live thing on YouTube of his, and I'm like, no, that sound, that's just amazing. And I think that's the same thing with that Kentucky Woman thing, and of course the Work song with Paul Butterfield Blues Band and Mike Bloomfield. Oh my goodness, so many sources to get inspiration from.
Well, okay, that's
Yeah. There wasn't just one. It was like, and we love the Buffalo Springfield. I mean, I know that's a whole different thing, but there's just so much. Oh my goodness, it's awesome.
No, absolutely. You know, it's fortunate that we're able to come from experience what we've been able to experience. You know, that I mean, you listen to music now, and we'll get into this later because I'm really curious to ask you, you know, what you feel about, you know, music that's being created now. But give us a little bit of history. I had mentioned a few bands earlier. You know, The Way, you know, Parable, Bethlehem. Once you started playing, okay, you're in a band now. Give us a little bit of a history of what you've been able to do.
Okay. Okay. Well, when I first got in, well, when I was 15 years old, there had been a big change in Alex's life. Alex, this friend of mine, and all that, and he didn't tell me what happened to him, but he had come to faith in the Lord, and I didn't know anything. I didn't even know what a Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were. I knew nothing about the Bible. I never even thought about God. And I was so needy, but that's whatever. I'll move on from that. And he invited me. So I didn't play for 2 years. I received the Lord as my personal Lord and Savior. Everything changed, absolutely everything. And I'd come home from school and I'd read like the whole book of Romans before dinner, the whole Ephesians, Philippians. I mean, I dug in. I was blowing my mind that God was real. So having said that, I stopped playing for 2 years in front of people. I kept practicing. I kept playing by myself, but I just wanted to grow and learn spiritually and things like this. So that was in the 10th grade. I graduated a semester early because I had enough credits. I didn't know I did, but I got this letter and I went, okay, bye. So that's not. And I went to Europe. I went to Europe. I was 18. I went with a guy who was 17. We toured around Europe for a couple of months, having an amazing time. That we just wanted to be a part of what was going on there ministry-wise and stuff. I came back and I was invited to this thing called a Maranatha music meeting. And I didn't even know what that was. But it was a record label, Maranatha Music, that was and they were having a meeting every day of that week. And so I was invited to go. And so I went, and the meeting was like a Bible study and just a time to get together and be together. So I was holding the door open for this one guy. His name's Dana. And he comes up and he goes, how's your group doing? I said, I'm not in any groups. He goes, how'd you like to be in ours? And I said, okay, because we had met before I went to Europe at a camp, and we played together one afternoon. We jammed. So that's how we met. So he saw me. This is about 3 months later. He saw me, and I wheeled my amp up to where their apartment was, and they didn't have a bass player. So I got in playing bass. I never played bass before in my life, but I knew the notes, and their kind of music was like, you know, acoustic and kind of quasi Crosby, Stills and Nash, and a little bit of America and country. So, you know, I know how to play a 1 and a 5, and, you know, so I just played bass. I would have played kazoo. I didn't care. It was so awesome to be able to share the Lord and to be a part of what was going on. Back then there was like, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 contemporary Christian music bands nationwide. I mean, there was like a album coming out once every month or two, not 100 every 5 minutes. So like it is today. But so anyway, we played all the time, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. We played every week, every day, every week. We just played all over the place, and we traveled all over the place. High school, mandatory assemblies, colleges, whatever. And so anyway, it transitioned into, I played electric, and Dana and I would do these double leads like the Allman Brothers and stuff. And and then it just got more electric. And we did 2 albums. The first album we did was the first band album that Maranatha Music did. And then after that, when it was time for that band to disband, I was actually going to be the guitar player for Richie Furay. He was a brand new believer, and he wanted to put together a band, and it didn't work out. It was a very intense 10 days of rehearsal, and I was a young punky guy, and anyway, that didn't work out. So I went on the road playing bass with this other kind of trio thing, acoustic thing, just because it was an opportunity. Came back, and I was invited to be in Parable. And I didn't know what I was supposed to do, but I just wanted to go over to talk to the guys. They were in rehearsal. I didn't even take my guitar and amp. I didn't want to play. I just wanted to talk and pray together and get to know each other. And so anyway, they had an amp and somebody else's guitar set up. And, I don't care to play somebody else's guitar, but they, I'm easily pushed. So I picked it up, and it was just so easy. And I ended up being in the group. And my wife, she used to sing. She used to have her own band. She played in clubs and lounges. She calls them upholstered gutters. And she used to live on alcohol and ice cream, and it was, yeah. So she has a whole nother story. She called the suicide helpline. It turns out at 5 o'clock or 6 p.m. it switches over to One-Way Help Center, which was a Christian thing. She didn't call a Christian helpline, but it transferred over to one by the time she called. And long story short, she came to the Lord like darkness to light, death to life. I mean, it was overnight. And she never wanted to sing again because it was too much hurt and the past to her. And so for about 5 weeks, she'd come home on the weekends to Huntington Beach, but Monday through Friday, she would spend with Keith and Melody Green up in the LA area. He had kind of a commune there, and there was a lot of discipling going on and mentoring, and he encouraged her to sing again. And she remembers Larry Norman. You had mentioned him earlier. She remembers him coming in, and Randy Stonehill and all that. And a lot of those early songs that were being written, and she just remembers kind of being around. But anyway, there was a singer needed for the band because we were going to go to England for 5 weeks. And somebody kept telling the lead singer of Parable, which was Chuck Butler, about Lisa. And so he kept calling her, and she was up in a Volkswagen van going up with this other girl up to the coast of California. They were in the Bay Area. They were witnessing and just all kinds of stuff. Long story short, she tried out, she got in the group, and that's how we got to know each other and fell in love. And she's just over the top amazing. But and then when Parable disbanded, the guy who was the head of Maranatha Music at the time, he told me about this guy named Benny Hester who had needed a guitar player. Well, I didn't know that I even wanted to be in a Christian band again. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I didn't want to be in a non-Christian band. I just didn't think. I just was like, I need a rest because it was intense. It was intense. And plus the whole contemporary Christian music thing, I didn't get it at the time. I do now, very much now, but I didn't at the time. It just seemed so different. And I'm just like, whatever, I just need time to understand all this. So anyway, so I got his first album. It was given to me, and Lisa and I sat down and I played it, and she was in tears because it just seemed so simple and out front and full of the Lord and all of that. So those guys lived in Las Vegas. So I drove out to Las Vegas to rehearse with them. And honestly, those guys were an absolute blast. I mean, they were so fun, and they were just great to be with. And Jeff Lamb's crazy amazing piano player, so good. He ended up being heading up Donna Summer's group when she was still around, and he's so good. And Gary Arthur got in that group too, and Benny, who is just really good communicator and funny, and maybe not always meaning to be funny. He just was. And it was just a great time. And then when I was on the road with him, I just believed it got shorter and shorter, the amount of times we played, because Benny was doing a lot of solo stuff. And I just got married. I was teaching guitar lessons and writing jingles for Christian companies, because Benny used to have the biggest jingle company in Las Vegas, which it's not a TV town. Las Vegas is not a TV town, but he did it. He was good at it, and it gave me the idea. So I wrote a bunch of jingles, and it was so fun. And I have to say this one thing, if I could, about playing with Benny. Ron Tutt joined the group after a while. And he's just, oh my gosh, it was so good. So good. And as you know, he was Elvis's drummer for the last 10 years of Elvis's life. Been playing with Neil Diamond the last 35 plus years, whatever. I think he's retired a couple of years ago. And it was just wonderful. It was just so good. And he's such a precious person. And anyway, it was wonderful. He played on all the albums that Lisa and I have done. Well, she's the singer, so they're really her albums, but he played on both of them, and he's amazing. So
can I tell you my Ronnie Tutt story?
I want to hear it.
Okay, we've got real second, because this is not about me. This is about you. Okay.
I don't care.
All right.
I want to hear
All right.
it.
We were in Whitefield Studios, which used to be the old Maranatha Studios. Okay. And I was recording an album with the band I was in, and we're taking a break. Or I was taking a break. I wasn't doing my bass tracks or anything. So I'm walking down the hall, and I hear this. I'm going, what the heck is going on here? All right. So I walk down and I look in the studio in one of the other studios, and there's a little glass window you can look through. And I look through, and this guy's just bam, 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 bam. I'm sitting there kind of going, is he having a stroke or something? What is going on? I mean, he's just so I look in, and this guy, this other guy, he looks through the window and he sees me looking, and I'm going. I went like, oh, I'm not here to bother. Sorry,
yeah.
No, come on in. He thought I maybe was wanting to get into the studio, and I'm like, come on in. So I went ahead and went on, and this guy's still pounding away, just da. Well, happens to be Ronnie Tutt is sitting on the drum set. He's getting ready to go out on tour, and I don't know who he was getting ready to go on tour with, but he was testing cymbals.
Oh, wow.
He was trying to figure out what cymbals he was going to be. Like, he'd go, da, da, da. He go, no, that's not going to work. Take that one off. They put another. Anyway, it was the Zildjian, because I know he plays pasty right now, but it was the Zildjian cymbal guy, and he would put a new cymbal up as soon as Ronnie, no. Yeah, that's a keeper. So that's my Ronnie. So anyway, he introduces himself. He goes, hi, my name's Ronnie. And I said, hey, Ronnie. I said, I'm Leonard Carillo. I said, I'm doing a session over here. And he goes, oh, great. So we're later, I don't know, about an hour or so later, we're taking a break. I was in the control booth, and Tom Roy was in. Okay.
Yep.
And Tom goes, did you hear that over there? Yeah. I said, yeah. I said, yeah. He goes, you know who that is, right? I said, yeah. He introduced himself. He was Ron or Ronnie or whatever. He says, you don't know who that, you just don't know who you just met, did you? I said, no. I said, I'm sorry. That's Elvis Presley's drummer.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. So that's my Ronnie Tutt story.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
Go ahead. Back to your history. I'm sorry. I
Well,
I didn't mean to segue that.
no, that's okay. Just one more quick thing. I remember listening to him. He played on a bunch of albums around the neighborhood during a, a season there before moving to Nashville, but in Orange County, California, before moving to Nashville. And I remember hearing him. He played on this one album by Bob Bennett,
Oh,
and it was halftime. It was it was just a slow thing. And I remember listening and just focusing on the snare. And this is no quantizing back then. I mean, there's nothing like that. It was just playing. And I remember just laughing to myself, shaking my head, going, that snare is absolutely perfectly placed. It was on the back end of the beat of every single beat perfectly. It was so impressive to me how somebody could keep time like that. Anyway, I'll move on. It obviously made an impression on me. So he is amazing and it was awesome. But those guys are so fun to play with. And at the time when I was doing these jingles, teaching guitar lessons, Lisa and I had been married about a year, getting on close to a year and a half. I knew we were on the road, and I knew that, and here's my wife at home who just loves to be a homemaker and a new wife. And she was with our first child, Evan. And I just knew we were supposed to be doing something together, musically or something. And long story short, I just kept, I knew I was supposed to leave the group playing with Benny because there was just other stuff to do. And we had been invited, Lisa and I were invited to lead worship out in Prescott Pines in Arizona. And there was a retreat going on there. And we never led in worship before, never even thought about it. I mean, never was on our radar, never even played those songs, but I knew all the songs and I knew where the chords went because I could hear where they went. But anyway, so we're out there, and Pastor Chuck Smith is out there, and she flew out in a little 4-seater plane with him, and Benny and myself and the band, we were in Waco, Texas for this series of outdoor concerts and thing. And one of the speakers was, strangely enough, Elvis's cousin.
Oh, yeah.
And he honestly, he looked almost identical to me, except he was blonde, which I understand Elvis was blonde.
Yes, he was.
So anyway, it's crazy. But anyway, so it got cut down to 3 nights and 2 nights because it was all threatening rain. I was just twiddling my thumbs in a hotel room, knowing I was supposed to leave the group, but it was so easy not to and just to float along. Long story short, we did the music Friday night at the retreat. Saturday morning we led some songs. And then Pastor Chuck spoke and he was going back after lunch. And so I asked one of the pastors there, I said, what's going on tonight? He goes, you guys. And I said, well, you're going to speak? He goes, no. I went, okay. So I went to the cabin. I got on my knees. I just went, God, what are we going to do? We don't know anything. Okay. So 2.5 hour meeting, 2.5 hours. It was amazing time of people sharing, praying together, of singing. It was such a blessed time. And that was just, and afterwards I'm like going, okay, what is this all about? And shortly after that, we were asked to go down to San Diego to be a part of the ministry with Mike McIntosh, who used to pastor Maranatha Music and was at those meetings that I first went to, but he had since moved down here and started a church. And we ended up leading in worship there for 4.5 years. And then from there, we went to back up. We were invited to come back up to Calvary Costa Mesa with Pastor Chuck, and we were there for 11 years. And we were actually the first worship leaders ever on staff there. And then from there, we came down here in 96, and they haven't changed the locks on us yet. So we're still here. And in the meantime, it was getting close to about 20 years ago now that I mean, I played acoustic guitar all the time leading a worship. I never played electric until about getting close to 20 years ago. I was asked down here to do something different for a midweek thing. And I said, what, something with more of an edge? And I was told, yeah. And so I said, well, I can pick up the electric. They said, yeah. So, and it just took off. And my whole electric thing, especially with the kids growing up, I mean, both the boys, they do CDs, and they're amazing, over the top songwriters, singers, musicians. It's crazy how good they are. I mean, obviously I'm a dad and I know that, but oh my goodness, they're so good. But when they were in their teens and I first started playing with them, I heard these live recordings back, and I was embarrassed by what I did. I thought it was so goofy what I did. It just sounded like the 70s to me. And I was trying, and I went, no, I got to stretch out here. And, you know, I mentioned those people from the 60s. Well, being that young, and I know I'm not alone in this, but I was so opinionated. So opinionated. It's like, this is what's good. Everything else is garbage. And I've done a whole 180 on that. And I never listened to U2 that much. Like, I just didn't. The kids did, but I just never did. And I heard these millennials picking up guitar and playing the first and second string, and every once in a while the third string with a bunch of delay. And after they've been playing for like 6 months or less, and that's all I heard. And I just, come on, guys, there's more to it. And honestly, Edge, that guy's amazing. I'm just like, I am absolutely blown away by so much more than I was when I was a kid. That guy, he's influenced a whole generation for a reason. And he's so solid in what he does, and so creative, and so many other guitar players. I mean, this guy bought me a ticket to go hear Pat Metheny, and I've always loved it when he picks up his little solid body brown thing that sounds like a quasi trumpet thing, you know. Always blown away by it. I've gone to YouTube and just listened over and over again to some of those solos, but wow, he was so good. I mean, and then some of these other people I hear that I've been introduced to in the last 10 years on YouTube, which is so good. I'm like, I mean, whether it's Eric Gales or it's this guy, Chris Buck, this younger guy that's just like so tasty. There's so many players. And so anyway, it's been wonderful. So we ended up leading a worship, and we've been down here ever since, and that's where we are still. And I did this last album because I just wanted to bend some notes. I just wanted to play, and it got to the point where I wanted to. The goal became to finish it, and I finally did finish it, and so there you go.
Well, let's talk about that project, and how can we get a hold of that? Where can we find that?
Okay, well, I did get a website. I was told that you can make it a one-stop shop, and it's really easy for folks. So that's what I did. So it's available on Spotify, for all the digital sites, Amazon Music, iTunes, all that. It's available there. And as far as physical CDs, I have a website store, and they're mailed out really quick. And you just go to the website and hit the click down menu and go to store, and that's there, as well as a Christmas instrumental album that I did. And so that's where you get the physical CDs. All the digital stuff is where everybody else's album is digitally.
Okay, the website. Give us the website.
Oh, it's johnwickham.org. So that's it. So JOHNWICKHAM.org.
Okay, good. All right, we'll make sure that that's posted up. But
Thanks.
yeah, John, I've been a fan of yours forever. Okay, I think we were telling briefly the story. I was 19 years old when I first saw Parable, and that really kind of
wow,
it pivoted my perspective on music and what I wanted to do. And so you're in fact I was showing you the album that I bought that night. I still have that album. Okay, and
that's the first one.
I have illustrations, but I cannot find it because you know what? I have 3 sons, and they have decided to get into, and this has been a few years ago. My one son is a vinyl addict, and he got into my record collection and has basically pillaged my record collection. So I think he probably has that. But I remember Illustration was one of my favorite Christian albums. Besides, some of the bands that and the people that influenced me through this journey, from Daniel Amos to Randy Stonehill to Larry Norman,
Sure,
to Tom Howard. Anyway, the list goes on. But
yes.
yeah, I remember hearing the oh my gosh, what's the name of the band? Love Song. I remember hearing a Love Song. Shortly after, I think I experienced my experience. I did at the Warehouse Music, Warehouse Ministries. Ministries, where we saw Parable, and I listened to Love Song, and I just went, okay, yeah, all right, this is it. This is the
Beautiful.
I want to go to. So yeah, but
Okay.
anyway, I'm excited about your project, John. I've listened to it, and I love your interpretations. I love your expressions. I love your playing. You're kind of a hybrid. I was trying to think yesterday of who, I mean, you've got threads of so many different, people, and I just kind of go, this is really cool. Okay, I mean, you were talking about your influence. Who would you say, as far as your influences, who do you feel like you I hate to use the word mimic. Who would you say you favor your playing to?
I would say it's more genres. I mean, it's definitely blues based, but that would be the base of it. But I've always had a thing for how jazz players can be so fluid and play. And I really tried over the years, and that's a whole different thing. I don't think I come close to the genuine thing at all. But I would say that that's a secondary thing. Certainly, country rock was there with Buffalo Springfield and The Way and stuff. That's just sort of became kind of second nature to play. But I don't think it's one person. It's just, yeah. So, I mean, I can't think of anybody. So.
Well, there was a lot of Eric Clapton in there. There was obviously, some a little bit of flavor of some Hendrix, because you brought up Hendrix, and there's certain things, and I'm just kind of going, okay, yeah, this guy is not going to be pigeonholed. He's not going to be put in any one, like for instance, I mean, there's certain people I've interviewed. It's, oh yeah, okay, well, he's definitely he's definitely a Eddie Van Halen, or he's got this influence or this influence, and but anyway, but I was very very impressed, and I remember, and I'm not a guitar player, I'm a bass player, okay, but I've always loved guitar, and I remember staring. You were probably, you were probably at the time going, who is this guy, just staring at me, just watching you play. And I just sat there and went, okay, it's just, I was just fascinated. I was fascinated by your craftsmanship. Let's put it this way. And so anyway, that night I was blown away. It was definitely a revelation that night, that I thought, okay, all right, I'm not out here alone. I can do something that I feel has some relevance.
Totally.
And not just doing something that's going to, pleasure some people for an evening, and they go home and have a huge hangover the next day.
Yeah.
But and I just thought, okay, all right, this is it. So it started on me on my journey. So let's talk about, so John, you have a very musical family. Obviously, you talked about your wife and your children. How do you feel, okay, reflecting on today's music, and you touched a little bit, how do you feel about the music that's being produced today?
Well, let me give you both ends of it. Generally, I mean, we both know, and anybody listening to this podcast knows, that there's a ton of music out there, and there's a ton that's being produced every day. Generally, I think that there's amazing stuff out there. I could go, in fact, with this album, I never was on social media before, except for Twitter, which I almost canceled, but whatever. The point is I was never on Instagram or Facebook until this last month, and it was solely to help get the album out there and let people know it's around. But
and I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I am too. In fact, I want to tell you that on the Facebook thing, Instagram too, but mainly the Facebook thing, some of the people that have contacted me from every single decade, there are times, a couple times, I seriously was almost in tears. I was so moved by even just seeing their names again. It's been one of the highlights is just reconnecting. But anyway, but what I was going to say is on Instagram, I just started following anything that had music in it. I didn't know who these people were. I just wanted it. And sometimes I go to Instagram and I forget which one it is, but I think the one on the far left where it has a little house thing. Anyway, I'll just scroll and I'll see all these players who just posted something that day or the day before. And they're not all good, but 70% is blowing my mind how good they are. And these drummers and some of these girl drummers and these guys that are just doing all this stuff, and these guitar players and some of these people, I'm just like, there are so many amazing players out there and so much good music. So I'm into it. There's so much music out there that obviously there's going to be a portion of it that's garbage and that doesn't have any heart in it. And but I see more the other. Having said that, there is some stuff that I'll hear once in a while. In fact, recently, when I drive, I'll turn the radio on and I'm constantly flipping through stations just to hear what's up constantly. And I remember this one song came on, and I could tell it didn't even take two measures. Before I turned it, I could tell it didn't. It was so like it was like repellent to me, because the drums sounded like someone just pushed a button on one of those organs or keyboards that had fake drums, and the synth, it just sounded like a song that was written in, I mean, if the song was 3.5 minutes, it was written in under 4 minutes, the song. And those songs are out there. And I guess they have their saving quality, I suppose, is if somebody wants to dance. I don't know. So there is that. But my personal opinion is I see a lot of amazing stuff in any genre, because I like pop music too. There's a lot of great pop stuff that I really enjoy listening to on occasion.
Yeah, I was watching a documentary not long ago, and this is before, obviously, Tom Petty had passed away, but he was talking about celebrating mediocrity. Because the question was asked to him, how do you feel about today's music? And he goes, well, we're basically celebrating mediocrity. And I'm just kind of going, man, because I'm like you, John, that you hear something for 30 seconds and you go, I mean, there was no thought, there's no soul into it. There's no emotion to it. There's nothing to it. It's like, it's interesting, and I'm grateful that I grew up listening to the music and having available. We had a radio. It was an AM radio, and you didn't have genres. You didn't have a radio station that just played hard pop or hard rock or this or this. You had an AM station that basically played everything from Aretha Franklin to Neil Diamond to Elvis Presley to, I mean, you name it. It was just all there. So you were exposed to all of this music, which was just phenomenal. And then I'm playing in a band, very young, and the band's playing the top 40. So now I've got to learn, I've got to learn this stuff. Okay. And I'm learning by ear, because I don't play with music. I don't play music. And it's interesting because not long ago, probably about 1.5 years ago, I actually got in contact with Carol Kay. Okay. She was part of the
Oh, wow. How fun.
Yeah. And so I got a chance to share with her. I said, Carol, I said, first of all, you're one of my heroes. I said, I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you. And it was kind of sarcastic, because like, I just want to thank you for making my life such a miserable hell, because I had to learn all of those bass parts that you had put on all of these, top 40 songs that you were playing to. And she says, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not. But it was like, but I just told her, I said, I mean, the stuff she was playing was obviously, phenomenal. And then here you got this young kid that's just picked up this bass that's never played before, and I'm trying to learn some of these, songs, these Beach Boys songs, these, anyway, all these pop songs that were on the radio.
Yes.
But, we're very fortunate that we had a chance to go through that and be exposed to that. I was watching a documentary on Tower Records just the other night called "This All Things Must Pass," and my son walks in. My youngest son, he's in his 30s. He had come home for something, and I told him. He said, "Dad, what are you watching?" Because every time he comes home, I'm watching a documentary, a music documentary. I'm just fascinated. I always have been. And he says, "Dad, what are you watching?" And I said, "Oh, it's a documentary on Tower Records." I said, you missed it, Jared. I said, "You missed it." And he goes, "Dad, you took me there all the time," because the home store was over here right off of on Watt Avenue, and everything, every album I have, except unless I bought it at the concert, Every album I probably have has been bought by Tower Records. But I told him, I said, that's an error. That's a phase that you'll never, I mean, most people will never get to experience. Going into a record store.
Yeah.
Remember, see, being on a number of records. I remember going into Tower Records. I mean, do you remember this? Seeing the record that you played on in a record store? Did that just blow your mind or what?
Yeah, it did. Well, I saw a lot of the records in the 25-cent rack too. Because I go back so far.
Oh.
In fact, I've been on 8 tracks.
Yes.
And 4 tracks.
Yeah. And cassettes. Yes, cassettes.
I want to tell you real quick that I just want to tell you real quick that I started with 100%, but I think my battery's down to about 5% right now.
Okay.
So if you wanted to go longer, I need to go in and get a charger and plug it in right down here. So I apologize if you wanted to.
You're doing fine, because basically what I want to do is there's a question that I ask all my guests, and because we're going to need to wrap this up, because honestly, I truly believe, I thought, this could go on for 3 hours, but I don't know too many people that watch 3-hour video podcasts, but
I understand.
But John, number one, before we get to this fun question, and it has absolutely nothing to do with anything other than I just love getting the guest reactions but I appreciate you so much for reaching out, or reaching back, I should say. I'm the one that reached out, but reaching back to a person that you met many years ago, that I know you would never remember meeting me, but I remember getting a chance to meet the whole band, and probably even talking with you a little bit, but reaching back and having this connection, I am totally, absolutely honored. But
Leonard, thank you.
So the fun question I have, which I ask all of my guests here, is if you were stranded on a deserted island and you could only take 3 albums with you, what are those 3 albums? Any genre, any genre. It could be sound effects.
I understand. Well, if I was all by myself, which is what I take that question to mean, this might be a cop out to you, but I would take album that was a compilation album of my wife's music and of my eldest son's music and our second born son's music. Those are the 3, compilation of all their stuff, if I was all by myself.
Okay, by the way, mention who your sons are, okay?
Well, our firstborn is Evan Wickham. He has CDs out, and he's seriously just so crazy good. And he's also pastoring a church. It's called Park Hill Church. It's downtown San Diego, and it's just doing amazing. And then our second son is Philip, goes by Phil Wickham, and he has many albums out. He's got I think This Is Amazing Grace is went platinum. I mean, and he's just finished another album that'll be out in, I think, June or July. And they're both very prolific, and they're out and about, and they're amazing. They're so good. Great songwriters, great singers, which they did not get from me, because I
well, come on, you got to take some credit.
I sing like the guy in the 5th row. My wife's a singer. That's who they got it from.
Well, she's a beautiful singer too. My wife came home. This was a few years ago, and she showed me the CD. She goes, I got it. She goes, I got it. I said, what you got? She goes, I got Phil Wickham's CD. And I'm going, I said, hon, do you know who that is? And she goes, yeah, it's Phil Wickham. She goes, it's got this, I said, remember. So anyway, I told her the story. She goes, are you sure?
Wow.
You sure? And I said, hon, why would I lie about that? Come on.
Wow.
Why would I make that stuff up? I said, no. I said, remember John? I said, that's his son. And he goes, okay, well, that kind of makes sense because he's, his dad was a musical anyway. So that's
Leonard, Leonard, seriously, I did not expect this from you. It's been such a joy. Gosh, it's been a joy.
well,
So
I can't tell you, the anticipation I have with talking with someone that I really don't know. I mean, I know you, but I don't know you.
I understand.
It's always, it's like, okay, this can be really good or this can be really bad. And so it's been a delight because I mean, I am honored, dude. Like I said, this is more for me than probably you. Because just having you on the show is such an honor, because what you did, what you did in a part of that band Parable, that basically kind of shifted. I don't know where I could have been, but I know where I am, and I think you're part of that. So I'm very,
Wow.
very, very grateful. So back to the albums. I want to know. Tell me the 3 albums. Other than now, is there an album available with all of that, or is this just a compilation that you would put together?
The latter. It's a compilation I
Okay.
would put together. One from because my wife has done a few albums and sung on other albums, and I take some of those songs too. And then Evan has done, oh my goodness, yes, a Christmas album. He's got, I think, 3 other albums, and they're amazing. And then Philip, I think he's on his 10th or 12th. I don't know how many albums he has, and they're so good. And he started actually collaborating, co-writing about 5 years ago, and that just added all kinds of wonderful depth and stuff to what he was already writing. So that's what I'd have, especially if I was by myself. I'd want to hear them, and so.
Well,
Anyway,
that's the father's heart. That's dad.
yeah,
That's awesome. That's great.
yeah.
So you got what, 2 albums there, or what's another one?
Oh, really? That I'd want with me? Gosh, I don't know. Probably some. I would think some worship albums of some kind. And I mean, I honestly, I love the East West album. If you want to get into those kind of albums, Paul Butterfield Blues Band.
Sure.
I just think it's a great album. I love some of the Buffalo Springfield stuff on not the first album necessarily, but the third or fourth. The second or third. And uh, gosh, I don't know. There's so many. I just can't pick. That's why I went for the kids, and my wife, because that was the easiest.
Yeah, it was a cop out. Come on, but no, but they got some great stuff. There's absolutely no question that they produce some great stuff. So,
Yeah.
Well, listen, John, it has been an absolute, again, pleasure, and thank you. I'm so honored to have you on the show, and for you taking time away from your busy life. And we're going to look forward to supporting your project. I'll put that website back up so people can get a hold of that for themselves, and they will thoroughly enjoy it. So I'm just, again, I'm grateful, and I'm blessed, and I hope that we can call each other friends now.
I love that.
So on behalf of everybody watching here on Analogpod, I want to thank you for being a part of this, and please, let's stay in touch. And if you got any other future projects coming up, let me know, and we'd be more than glad to support you there. And I would just say, keep up the good work, man. And we appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Leonard. Unexpected, amazing time. I mean, I know it'd be fun, but seriously, it's just been great talking, and we have each other's emails.
Yes.
And I'll send you my number and another email, and let's just stay connected somehow, little by little. And So God bless you and your family. And it's been a joy, seriously.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Phil. And I mean, not Phil, I just called you Phil, John. And again, thank you very much. And blessings,
Okay.
brother.
You too. God bless you.